Hi, Principal Matters friends. This is Will Parker back with my co-host, Dr. Jen Schwanke, for another Monday Matters. Jen, it's the end of September, or almost the end. This is going to be releasing September 22nd. And, I'm a little bit sad because we're coming to the end of your book. I have so enjoyed this series that we've been doing on Monday Matters for just going through the wonderful content from your new book, Trust Pillars, Trust Killers, and the Secret to Successful Schools by Dr. Jen Schwanke, your fifth book. And I don't know, are you already working on your sixth? Because you're always...
No, God, no, I'm tired. No.
Me too. I have been thinking lately, feeling guilty that I'm not working on my next book. And then I just thought, I guess sometimes after a long race, it's okay to take a rest.
Right.
So that's
I've got a little idea in my pocket, but I'm not going to share that yet with listeners. I'll share it with you.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to share it with them. Sorry, listeners. You have to wait a while.
We'll talk about that. You wrap up this book with a chapter on self-trust and beyond. And I'm so glad you end here, because I think sometimes when we're talking about trust, when we're thinking about our parents and our teachers and our students and all the people that we're trying to build relationships with, sometimes it's important to come back and just look at our challenge our own doubts, our own self-doubts, challenge our own mindsets. And so take us into this conversation, Jen, why self-trust and beyond was an important way for you to wrap up this conversation.
Okay. Here's the thing. This was my favorite chapter to write. And if I could have, I would have had this be its standalone book, because I think this is, I don't like to use superlatives too much, but this is critical. As a matter of fact, I had a reporter reach out about this, and he said, I kind of skimmed through your book, but then I stopped at chapter 7. That's what I really want to talk to you about. And I understand why. Here's the thing. Trust with students, with parents, with teachers, it grows with small interactions over time, right? These small little moments, a million little moments that make up a career. It's cumulative. It's, those countless relational exchanges, dozens of tiny moments. But what about those small moments we have with ourselves, the conversations that we constantly have in our own minds about who we are and what we can accomplish? And this is where principals, I think, are exceedingly vulnerable to the pits in their own mind, if you will, because we, in our work, everything's coming at us. It's coming at us fast. And we are constantly told, reflect, acknowledge your mistakes, acknowledge those missteps, apologize, and so we have this critical eye on ourselves all the time. And I don't know many principals that go home every day and say, you know what? Everything I did today, I nailed it. We do the opposite, right? Our commute home is full of, well, I wish I'd have said that differently, or I wish I'd have handled that kid differently. And so we're constantly breaking the trust we have with ourselves. And so that's why I wrote this chapter.
I'm glad you did. And Jen, it's so funny because, last week we were talking in our Q&A about schools that have to keep reventing or revisiting. And I feel that way so much about self-trust, because I can't tell you the number of times I'm prepping for a week, and maybe that week I get to meet, in my work now, I get to meet and consult or coach or train, sometimes virtually, sometimes in person. And the amount of self-doubt that I deal with before I step into one of those situations of, man, I don't know if this time I'm going to do it right, or if this time I'm really going to connect, or this time. And so on the one hand, I think it's good to stay humble. But on the other hand, man, we waste so much of our energy by those self-defeating narratives that we walk through. So what are some things you want leaders to hold on to when they're battling their own self-trust? Right.
Well, I think first it's the acknowledgement that we're hardest on ourselves, and that we break our own self-trust before anything else. And, if it happens because if we falter or if we handle problems in a way that others don't like, they get upset, they question our leadership, that stress accumulates, and the weight of our responsibilities gets heavier. It gets worse with time. I heard two very wise things from some colleagues along the way. One of them was, a friend of mine said, the best day for a principal is the first day. And I laughed because it's true, right? Because you haven't yet done anything to make anybody bad. And then what follows, a friend of mine, he was a superintendent in New York, And he said, the problem with school leadership is you're going to make 10% of the people mad every year. So add that up to 5 years, 50% of the people don't like you, right? Now, I don't think that's actually true with the principalship. I think it's a little different because we do build the relationships with our communities. And so even if we do something that makes them mad, you can repair that. But it's worth thinking about, because if we walk around the world and we think we've broken trust with all these people, nobody likes us, everybody hates me, I'm going to go eat worms, that kind of thing. That's, by the way, a song. I said that at my house the other day and my family's like, what? It's a cute song. Look it up. But there's some things that we can do to really help build our self-trust. Okay, so can I go into those now, Will?
Do it, please.
Okay. All right. The first is doing our best and accepting that. This is such a hard concept for people. And I remember the moment this clicked into place for me the first time. I proceeded to forget it. But I was a runner in high school, and I had a big, big race coming. And there was a girl, her name was Shannon Thompson, and she was fast, you guys. She was fast, fast, fast. And I angsted about this race for weeks because I knew I was going to run against Shannon. And at one point, it hit me like a thunderclap. Jen, all you can do is run as fast as your body will run. There's no faster than that, right? Mm-hmm. And it brought such peace. Now, again, I've forgotten that many times, but it's worth remembering it. I can do my best. And if that isn't enough, there's nothing else I can do about that, right? And so we have to really accept that to be a good leader, we put forth the best that we have at that time with the knowledge that we have, with the information we have. And that has to be okay.
I love that, Jen. You said this in other settings, and I'm just going to bring it up here because I think this is a good place to emphasize this. But part of doing your best is recognizing your best is your best, and do not fall into the trap of comparing your best to someone else's best.
That's right.
It's so toxic to go, and I'll just give you Will's example, to jump online, check on my friends, see what they're doing, and then suddenly feel paralyzed that, I'm not quote unquote doing my best, or I'm not doing what they're doing. And that's so self-defeating because we're supposed to serve right where we are in the best capacity that we do. I'm not supposed to be you. You're not supposed to be me or anybody else.
That's right. That's right. So then the next concept I want to talk about is confidence and humility. And these two things can and should live together. As a matter of fact, there's been research done about this. Oyer in 2015 found that when teachers see their principals as both confident and humble, they rank them as more effective. So let's kind of dig into that. If you're confident, you have reflected on your success, you see it, you know you're pretty good at your job, right? Then there's humble. They also know they need to keep learning and growing, that no situation is the same, right? And so the definitions of confidence and humble can be skewed in a lot of different ways. But just sit in that for a minute, principals. You know you're good at your job, you've seen your successes, and you're ready to go forward with humility, right? I'm going to keep learning, I'm going to keep growing. Every day's a new day. So that's when we do that, teachers think that we're pretty darn good at our job too, and then that builds that self-trust.
Well, Jen, I always call that the two truths. And I usually say this sometimes when I've worked with leaders at the end of a conversation. I'll say, hold on to these two truths. One, you're not as important as you think you are.
Right.
Someday the school will exist without you.
That's right.
People will forget who you are. You'll be a picture on the wall. Two, you are so much more important than you think you are.
Right.
Because every action, every moment, every conversation is an opportunity for you to help someone, support someone, inspire someone. So keep those two truths in mind at the same time. And I love that you just coined those as both humility and confidence.
That's right. And, you kind of just referenced this. We also need to prioritize team over self. Okay, Jen, how can I build my self-trust if I'm prioritizing the team? Well, let's make an athletic analogy. Everybody who's ever been on an athletic team will tell you that being on a strong team builds confidence in every member. And we know that, right? We know that teamwork, when we think about other people, when we focus on others, it's a great feeling to know what your role is and to combine your contributions with other people's contributions, feeling like you're part of a team and you can do really, really incredible things together.
Oh, I love that. Keep going.
Next is practice and managing your emotions. This is, excuse me, I didn't say that. Practice managing your emotions. This has been my biggest weakness because my emotions can overcome me. And when that happens, I'm impulsive, I'm reckless, I sometimes dip into unprofessional conversations, and I lose perspective, right? But every time that I pause and I take a break and I wait for my calm and reasonable self to come back, I wind up feeling more confident in myself, and I trust myself that I can overcome those emotions.
Jen, what I love about that is I like to tell, especially newer leaders, that controlling your emotions is a learned practice.
Right.
If you had known me way back when, in my early years of being an administrator, man, I could be a hothead. And
That's
when
right.
people that have worked with me for a while will just say, "Well, you just seem so patient." And I'm like, it's a learned behavior.
That's right.
You have to learn how to control your emotions.
Right.
It's never going to come naturally.
That's right. That's right. Similarly, I'm a rusher, right? I like to hurry. So, building trust for me, if I don't rush to a solution, two things happen. One is I can pat myself on the back for not rushing like I want to do. And two, I get a better solution out of it, right? Most crises we face will be resolved more effectively if we take the time to address them, right? To think, to gather feedback, and then react. I find it comforts other people when they come to me with their hair on fire, they're anxious, they're worried, and I say, it's okay. This is not an emergency. It's all right. We have time to fix this. Do not, by the way, say calm down. Don't do that.
Amen.
But we do want to say, it's all right. We got this. We're smart. We'll figure this out.
Keep going. I love this.
Okay. Another one is assume and accept that you're missing something. Understand that you almost never have the full story. It's nice to admit you don't know because you're just that good to know you don't know.
Yeah.
Moving toward conflict. Now, this was the topic of my last book, Will, and you were gracious enough for us to kind of break that book down on the podcast as well. I have learned to embrace conflict. I've learned to say this is part of my work. I used to try and squish it and have it gone, but every time I successfully mediate or manage or facilitate a conflict, I build trust in myself for a job well
I
done.
love that. And you know that conflict is not only inevitable, but it's also sometimes seasonal.
That's
and
right.
so anticipating whatever's getting ready, anytime before a break, conflicts increase. They just do.
right.
And I used to dread the days before breaks. But then when I finally decided, why don't I embrace the days before breaks, knowing these things are going to happen anyway, and
Right.
just come in ready to help solve them.
That's right.
It makes a big difference.
That's right. Okay, just a few more. Another way to build trust in yourself is to give credit to others, believe it or not, to give it away. Part of a principal's job is to shine light on others, and that feels so good for other people when they get the credit they deserve rather than you, the principal, grabbing it. And believe it or not, when others receive credit and they know you've played a role as a leader, that builds their trust in you and thereby your trust in yourself.
Keep going.
Another one is positivity. And we've talked about how that time I was accused of toxic positivity once. And so I'm going to revise this to say authentic, realistic positivity.
Yeah.
We need to, we need to believe, and the people that we lead need to believe that it's going to be okay. Like, this work is incredibly, immensely difficult, but it's also fun. And the team, the people we work with are the reason that it is worth it and that it can actually be enjoyable in spite of how difficult it is.
I call that take the temperature of a room and then ask the question, what effect am I having on its temperature?
Right.
Because you can't always control the temperature of the room for someone else's, but you can
Right.
control yours. And I guarantee your positivity is going to make it better.
That's right. That's right. Another one is to seek and pay attention to feedback without taking offense. I have told my colleagues I'm pretty inoffendable, and they're like, let us try. But really, I'm not, because I feel like feedback is always a chance for me to learn and get better. But it's when we get defensive or when we take offense, when we take offense to feedback that our trust erodes. If we get in the mindset where we say, I want to hear it, I want to, be able to flip that around in my mind and see what it means to me. A knife that's not properly cared for gets really dull, right? Similarly, when we do our work, we need that feedback. We run that knife through the sharpener so that we are at our best.
Love it. Keep going.
Accept compliments. right? People
Yeah.
often, I argue with my husband all the time. He says people never, acknowledge, say thank you. And I said, no, nobody walks up to you and says, thank you for your work today. Nobody's going to do that with a principal or an athletic director in my husband's case. What they are going to do is they're going to show up. They're going to say, wow, that concert was awesome. They're going to say, we love the new teacher you hired. We're going to say, thank you so much for advocating for that new bench. They're going to acknowledge the good work you do, not with necessarily a handshake and a thank you for being a good principal, but the little things that you do. Accept those and realize that that's the positive that you really need to build your self-trust.
That's such a good perspective.
And I only have two more. I know our listeners are probably exhausted, especially because I'm talking so fast, but this one is being a chameleon. Principals really are chameleons. They're just as adept at talking to 5-year-olds as they are to 85-year-olds. And so, adjusting their communication approach to the various stakeholders, that is such a magical gift, right? Mm-hmm. And the fact that we can do that and connect with others on such a deep level, on things that they care about, is really a superpower. So acknowledge that you being a chameleon is something you can really trust in yourself.
I was going to use that word, Jen. You're right. And there's, sometimes I think that part of being an educator goes unacknowledged. That ability it's worth celebrating, and you should look at it as because I think you used the word in here. It doesn't mean faking it.
Right.
What it means is I can adapt to whatever child, whatever situation, whether it's a big group, small group. Yep. And if that's a strength you've developed, then keep growing it because it's going to benefit the people that you're working with.
Yep. Okay, my final thing. This one I call Get Over It. And here's why. The story I tell, I was leading a group and we were breaking into small groups, I think tables. And I jogged over to one of the tables and I tripped and I fell and my skirt went flying up. It was mortifying. I was humiliated. And I laughed it off as I am able to do. And okay. And then I sat down next to a colleague and I was, I just thought that was horrible. I don't know how I'm going to get over this. And a colleague reached over and she touched my hand and she said, let it go. Nobody's thinking about it. And I kind of looked at her and she said, I know you. I know that you're going to say again, the time that I fell and my skirt flew up, or you're going to make this a thing to try and laugh it off. She's like, seriously, let it go. The more you talk about it, the more it becomes a thing. So I shut up. I still remember the moment, but I guarantee the 30 people in the room, some of them didn't even see it, right? They were walking, their backs were turned. It was not a thing. You have to let it go. And this situation applies to any mistake. Acknowledge it, apologize, laugh it off if you need to, but don't, for goodness sakes, let it define who you are. And certainly don't let it impede the trust that you need to build in yourself.
Oh, Jen, so much wisdom. And, I'm almost sad that we're wrapping up this conversation because this has just been such a rich series as we've gone through your book, Trust Pillars, Trust Killers, and the Secret to Successful Schools. But as we are wrapping it up, I do want to give you an opportunity for any parting words as you're just leaving these thoughts with our listeners. And of course, we're hopeful that they've grabbed a copy of this book too.
Right. Yeah, my parting words are just, everybody knows what it's like love. Everybody knows what it feels like, but it's hard to define. And so this is my 60,000 word effort to define it for school leaders. And I just want to clarify for listeners that, trust has a really positive effect on student outcomes. It's reciprocal, and we can work on it and hone that skill, not only with others, but with ourselves. Those are my parting words.
Oh, I love it. Well, Principal Matters listeners, I know that you know that if you're getting ready for, let's say, a long hike or a trail or a good long walk, that having your nutrition and your fitness and your whatever all those things are you need to make that a successful day, trust is that thing you need. Yep. If you're going to walk the walk, if you're going to enjoy the journey, if you're going to engage in outcomes that you feel are good for kids and parents and communities and teachers. So Dr. Jen Schwanke, thank you for this wonderful resource, and thank you for sharing it with our listeners. And Principal Matters listeners, as you step into this week, we hope that you will give yourself the grace the confidence, the humility, and invite to yourself that trust first. Trust yourself so that you can build trust with others. So, Jen, how can folks stay connected with you and your content?
Yep, they can go to my website, jenschwanke.com, and there they will find a link to sign up for my weekly newsletter. And I'm really having a lot of fun with this. The newsletter is called Principal Problems with Dr. Jen. So sign up for that, and you'll get a little bit of me in your email inbox every week.
Well, I'm enjoying it too, Jen. And so, listeners, if you haven't signed up for the updates to receive this podcast in your inbox, you can also do that at our website at williamdparker.com. But until next time, thank you for doing what matters. We'll talk to you again soon.